legislator that, notwithstanding every attack and attempt on my own independence as a woman, on my own autonomy, on my own ability to make my health decisions in conjunction with my doctor, to be defended here in this Commonwealth. But I understand, having gone to the White House last week, having met with several other legislators from other states, that it is not the freedom that we have here in Pennsylvania and many other states across our nation.
In November, I got word that the Pentagon was thinking about spending taxpayers' dollars to facilitate elective abortions. This goes beyond what the law, which was passed here, the law allows. Now, I warned Secretary Austin that if he did this and changed this, I would put a hold on his highest level nominees. Secretary Austin went through with the policy anyway in February of this year, so I am keeping my word.
The senator is blocking 184 top military promotions because he disagrees with the Department of Defense policy to help service members and their families access needed health care, specifically to travel to access abortion care. Why is one senator punishing 184 dedicated men and women who actively serve in our military? All because he personally disagrees with a single policy decision from the Pentagon.
I believe the Bible teaches that we are to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. If there is anyone who cannot speak for themselves, it is the unborn baby in the womb.
Maybe I'm confused about this legislation. Or maybe the men who wrote it know more about pregnancy than the women in this chamber or across this state or the country who can actually get pregnant and give birth. They don't care about the children, they care about a victory. And if they would receive it and say this passes, and there were 1,000 more babies born a year in South Carolina, or maybe 2,000, they'll forget about them after they're born. They will not want to feed them or educate them or fill their needs in foster care if a mother or family cannot care for them.
And so let me just say this one more time, because I keep getting asked the same question over and over again. I will keep my hold. I will keep it on until the Pentagon follows the law or changes the law. It's that simple.
And we have a single senator, Senator Tuberville, who is holding and blocking 250 military promotions right now, the head of the Marine Corps, the head of the Army, the head of the Navy, because he objects to the fact that a woman might get a paid bus ticket to get an abortion. If blocking these nominations continues, we will have no chairman of the Joint Chiefs, no commandant of the Marine Corps for the first time in 134 years, no Army Chief of Staff, and his colleagues who claim to care about national security are letting him get away with it.
Both in 2021 and in 2022, there were over 40,000 abortions, enough to fill Great American Ballpark, where I love to go watch our Cincinnati Reds. Do you all know that LeBron James, an Ohio child, was born to a teen mother who chose life after she had been pressured greatly to abort her son? His annual salary this year is $44 million. How many wonderful, beautiful children have we lost?
Would you agree, or would your organization agree, that there should be no exceptions whatsoever with regard to abortions?
Yes, we would. Absolutely. That's because life begins at conception.
Do you also agree that there should be no exceptions related to the life of the mother?
Through the chair to the representative, yes, I agree with that. If the mother's life is in danger, that's also an exaggerated health care statement. If she's far enough along in the pregnancy, an abortion is not necessary. The child can be delivered. And we know from many times me testifying at the State House, we've had obstetricians testify here that abortion is never necessary for the life of the mother.
Along that same line of questioning, do you believe a woman suffering from sepsis while she goes through a miscarriage should be denied medical abortion care?
An intentional killing of a preborn child, 90-something% of abortions in Ohio are just that. They're for convenience. They're not for health care. Miscarriage care has nothing to do with intentional abortion, and I know that for a fact because I have lost 3 children by miscarriage. And that was not an intentional abortion where I chose not to have my child for convenience. They're completely unrelated issues.
I'm sorry to hear about your past experiences with miscarriage. Deeply, I am. But as my colleague just pointed out, there are no exceptions in the heartbeat bill that was passed here in Ohio. Therefore, that statement that you just made on a rare occasion that this happened is absolutely false. It is not rare. And in the instance of the life of the mother being in jeopardy, the loss of losing that life, we have no exceptions to save the life of that person here in Ohio. So I don't agree with you that it's rare. It happens all the time. In fact, there was a current situation in Ohio with a couple where that did happen, where the organs of that, what's the word I'm looking for?
Baby.
Fetus,
Baby.
where they were growing outside of the womb, and she had to go across lines, state lines, to get the medical care that she needed. So I don't agree with you that it's rare, but I do feel for you and send you my most heartfelt words to go to what you have been through, right? Because that is essentially what we are fighting for here. We are fighting for all life, including the life of a mother. So I also want to point out that it is also not rare just in our country. It happened in Ireland. So this is happening everywhere, including here in Ohio, and I do not want to stand here and allow this type of big government overreach in our medical care for reproductive freedom. It's outrageous. So I'm going to switch gears here and talk about child sexual abuse, something that is very personal to me. You got personal and talked about your miscarriages. Let's get personal and talk about my lived experiences. The fact that since the age of 6 or 7, as far as I can remember, I was sexually abused by a very close family member. And in fact, 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 13 boys experience child sexual abuse in their lifetime. And if we want to go even further than that with statistics, 1 in 5 women have experienced rape in their lifetime and before they were 18 years old. So I have a very hard pill to swallow when we're sitting here talking about the sanctity of life and saving people's lives, but we seem to forget the people that are caught in between and sexually abused by family members or close people that they know, and women who are raped on a daily basis who get no say in their life and their medical care. It's outrageous.
Question.
So my question to you is, do you believe that the next pregnant 10-year-old rape victim, because there will be more based on the statistics I just gave you, that child should be denied medical abortion care, that the state should substitute its judgment for the judgment of that child's parent and intervene in that decision?
While a pregnancy might have been difficult on a 10-year-old body, a woman's body is designed to carry life. That is a biological fact. It is not designed to have disgusting death instruments remove her preborn child from her womb.
Last year, we were all devastated when the United States Supreme Court, in its radical right-wing agenda, took away the rights of millions of Americans in a situation where they were not elected to do so. It's very disappointing that justices who went through heavy screenings and many interviews with folks in the United States Senate and who stated over and over again that they understood what constitutional rights mean, that they understood what protections mean, that they understood that Roe versus Wade was rooted in law and precedent and promised to uphold it. We were all astonished when not only the opinion leaked, but then shortly thereafter, a few weeks later, we were very upset to see not only the leak being confirmed, but so many rights of women across America immediately being taken away. I can recall not long ago a year later, standing on the floor of this House at the Minority Leaders Podium, reminding everyone in this building that when I go to my doctor's office, there's no room for any state legislators to join me. There's no room for the United States Supreme Court to join me. And I continue with that stance, and I'm proud to be a part of the majority Democratic caucus that stands in the gap for women's rights all across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm proud to be a part of this House Democratic majority that ensure there would be no constitutional abortion ban. So we have work to do. When there are women coming from West Virginia going to parts of Western Pennsylvania to get health care, and women coming from Ohio going to get critical health care, we recognize we have to do more as a body, we have to do more as a legislature, and most importantly, we have to ensure that all of America's daughters enjoy all the rights and freedoms that their mothers and grandmothers were able to see here in the 21st century. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I wasn't going to say anything, but in rules tonight, we had timely filed amendments, and we couldn't run our timely filed amendments. All the members of the Rules Committee know how that went down. There was no camera. So the people watching right now at home that are texting and tweeting and Facebooking about this nonsense, they didn't see what occurred in the Rules meeting, but there were timely filed amendments that we offered in the Rules meeting. And guess what happened in the Rules meeting in this Democratic chamber that loves votes and loves voters? Well, the members of the committee in the Rules meeting, Mr. Speaker, and this is why we need to suspend the rules now. With our timely filed amendments, we were not allowed to vote on one of them. We offered 3 timely filed amendments, and Mr. Speaker, you and the majority leader know the nature of the rules of this institution do not provide us the opportunity to provide a timely filed amendment tonight. You're aware of that, because you made those rules. So here we are on a Friday night, glad to be at work, because we know our voters sent us here to fight this battle. And we can't even suspend the rules for one consideration of something that is very important. As the maker of the motion stated, we're talking about women dying. We're talking about more than half the population not being able to make decisions when not even half of this body has a uterus. That's what we're talking about tonight, and that's why these rules need to be suspended, because we don't follow the rules in this body. Let the people back home know. That's why the rules need to be suspended, Mr. Speaker. That is why the rules need to be suspended, Mr. Speaker, because we had timely filed amendments that were tabled. And in case you're watching, because so many are, as we heard from constituents, voters are watching, we filed them in a timely way so they could be considered in committee, which is what the majority leader likes to lecture my caucus about each and every legislative day. But here we are, being silenced yet again. And understand, when you're silencing us, we are actually elected officials like you all. So you're silencing millions of voters from every corner of the Commonwealth when you silence us and don't allow us to amend bills that won't let people vote, that won't allow women to make their own decisions. You're silencing all of us. So we need to suspend the rules and let this amendment come through before we rush this off to the voters. Those same voters that you tried to silence in 2020 when you didn't like the outcome of the election. Those same voters that you said it didn't matter what they chose. Those are the people you're trying to shut up.
Later today, we will begin voting on the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, the Pentagon budget. Moving this legislation forward has almost always been a bipartisan issue in Congress. It takes on the responsibilities of funding our military. It protects our national security. It has been a bipartisan effort for nearly 6 decades. But last night, after midnight, Republican leadership decided to bring to the floor dozens of partisan, divisive amendments. If adopted, these amendments would transform this bill and transform our military. It is quite literally a wish list of the right-wing extremist colleagues on the other side of the aisle. There's an amendment to end all affirmative action in our officer corps, something even our Supreme Court refused to do just a few weeks ago. There's an amendment to full stop end all aid to Ukraine at the very moment we're expanding NATO and working on protecting that democracy abroad on behalf of all democracies. But another one that they passed was a divisive amendment that prevents female service members in the military from accessing the reproductive care that they need and they deserve. Plain and simple, last night they chose culture war over national security. And they're doing so as part of a clear effort to prevent every single American woman from accessing care. It is part and parcel of a larger campaign to impose a nationwide ban on abortion. Last night, like I said, in the dead of night, the Freedom Caucus passed this amendment to stop the military from paying for a bus ticket, for a plane ticket for any woman who needs an abortion. And it is proof of this bigger plan. In addition to this amendment that passed last night, we have amendments in the Appropriations Committee that are the same thing. 46% of active duty service women are stationed in states that now either ban or very severely restrict abortion. They have no choice. They are based there. They have signed up to serve their country. They have been put on a base in Texas or in Alabama. That is not their choice. That is their duty. But the authors of these bills are not set on just letting the reversal of Roe sit and having states make their own decisions. The authors of these amendments are from Alabama and Texas, which ban abortion, including in the role of rape or incest. Why is this important? It's important because we need to hear what people are telling us. They are telling us that they will not stop with the reversal of Roe that happened a year ago. They will not stop when states like Michigan organize to make sure we have protections for women who want abortions. They want every single American, starting with our service members, to live under the same rules that they choose in their states. We need to hear what they are telling us and act accordingly. They are choosing politics over our women in uniform, choosing politics in the Senate over our national security. So please, I have never in my life, as someone who served in the CIA, who served in the Pentagon, thought about voting against this bill. I believe it. I believe in it. It's about paying our military and getting them what they need. Please keep your culture war baggage out of national security. Thank you.
Right now, the senator from Alabama has imposed a hold on every single senior military nomination and promotion. That means that one senator is personally standing in the way of promotions for 184 of our top-level military leaders. One senator is holding up pay raises for men and women in uniform. One senator is blocking key senior military leaders from taking their posts. One senator is jeopardizing America's national security. He is worried that a service member might be seeking an abortion for themselves or for a family member. And he doesn't think the Department of Defense should participate in that in any way. Fine. The senator from Alabama can advocate for a bill to invade the medical privacy of every single service member. He can advocate for a bill that requires every commanding officer to do what no private employer can do, and that is to rifle through a service member's personal medical information. The senator from Alabama can seek to change federal law so that a commanding officer interrogates a service member with questions like, do you need time off because you're having trouble getting pregnant? Has your wife had a miscarriage? How many weeks pregnant are you? Was your daughter raped? These are not questions that commanding officers want to ask, nor should they be authorized or required to ask them. Like me, the senator from Alabama serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and as a consequence, he has many more opportunities than most senators to influence DOD policy. He has many more opportunities to question witnesses, many more opportunities to receive briefings, and many more opportunities to influence the annual defense bill that Congress passes every single year to govern Pentagon operations. He has many opportunities that do not actively threaten our national security. He has not raised any individual objections to the 184 service members whose promotions are now held up in the Senate. And he has not raised any objections to the process by which these men and women were vetted and nominated. The senator from Alabama and I fundamentally disagree on the issue of abortion. We disagree on Department of Defense policies. But all of us should be able to agree that a blockade of the promotion of every single senior member of our nation's military creates unacceptable risks to our national security, and it needs to stop right now.
The biggest proponents of the Human Life Protection Act are also the same proponents of constitutional carry, school choice, parental rights, regulating vaccines for everyone, especially children. These are the folks that don't want the government regulating masks or licensing any business. They all think the government should leave our property alone. All these things are clear human rights, rights to privacy. When it comes to a woman's body, when she becomes pregnant, she suddenly belongs to the government. Once somebody rapes her or she becomes a victim of incest, she would now belong to the government. Once a woman became pregnant for any reason, she would now become property of the state of South Carolina. Women don't want to get raped. They don't want to get pregnant from living in the horror of an incestuous family. Women don't have sex just so they can go have an abortion. Just like men, I don't think, have sex to get pregnant every time. Last week, I was given a spine by one of these lobbying groups, one of the organizations pushing this bill, and I found that to be an inspiration to stand up stronger in support of all the issues that have no huge lobbying groups to support them. Lobbying groups for foster care, lobbying groups for free lunch, lobbying groups like children who are abducted by human trafficking. The kids I support don't threaten you if you don't support them. They don't send you hate-filled letters. They don't protest out in front of your church, calling you nasty names in front of your family and your grandkids. They don't send you gifts. These kids can't afford that. They look at you with sad eyes or heartfelt hope for a better day, when maybe, just maybe, they can have a dad to walk around with them. A dad can play baseball with them, a dad to throw them the football. They're not a newborn, though.